Hey guys, we're going to be working on a few examples of scale. So converting actual measurements to scale measurements, or vice versa, going from scale drawing to actual measurements. So remember, scale is nothing but proportions, or in this case we could use it as a fraction, set up as a fraction. So if you got a game room that has a floor of 120 feet by 75 feet, what that means is basically you have a rectangular shape. So you got 120 feet here by 75 feet here. Now if you want to write that, if you want to draw that on grid paper, the grid paper already has a scale. It says that 1 unit, so one little square on the grid paper, represents 5 feet in either direction. So that's your scale. So 1 unit represents 5 feet. And a lot of times it's going to be centimeters. A lot of your scale paper is in centimeters. So 1 unit represents 5 feet. So what you're going to do is set that equal to your dimensions. So 120 feet is going to go down below because that's where your feet are down here. And then we're going to find out what this is. So how many units is that one? So same thing on the right of that. I'm going to do the same thing for 75 feet. So 1 unit represents 5 feet. Set that equal to 75 feet. And we're going to find out what that is. Okay? So how many times can 5 go to 120? Well, if you do the calculator, you do the math. 5 goes to 12. What, 2 times? You got 2 left over, right? 5 can go into 24. So 2, 4, 24 times. So 24 times 1 is 24, so it's going to be 24 units. Okay. And then here, 5 goes into 75. How many times? 1 time in 7. You got 2 left over, 25. 5 goes into 25 5 times, so that's 15. 15 times 1 is 15, so it's going to be 15 units. So what are the dimensions? Dimensions are 24 units by 15 units. But since, so I was going to say 15 by 24, but since they led with 120 feet, we'll just say it's 15 by 24. So that's the dimensions of the scale drawing. 15, let's see. Let's see if it makes sense here. 15 by 24 units. Okay, that's actually going to be the answer. Number 8, the length of a table is 6 feet. On a scale drawing, the length is 2 inches. Okay, so that means 6 feet equals 2 inches on paper. Right? It says write 3 possible scales for the drawing. Well, you could have 1 inch, right? 1 inch could represent 3 feet. So that could be one scale. 1 inch equals 3 feet. Because you could divide that by 2 and divide this by 2. You could also maybe divide by, let's see, divide by 4. If you divide this by 4, you could say half of an inch. And then divide this by 4, it'd be like 1.5 feet. So that might be a little bit harder to do. Let's try, instead of dividing by 2, let's multiply by 2. So you can do that as well. So it will be 2 times 2 is 4 inches, so 4 inches can represent 12 feet. So those would be 2 other possible scales. And it's asking for 3, so maybe another one could be, instead of dividing by 2 or multiplying by 2, you can multiply by 3 or divide by 3. Let's divide by 4 because it's going to go in a little bit evenly. So 2 divided by 4 is going to be 0.5. So 0.5 inches equals, and it's 6 divided by 4 is going to be 1.5. So 1.5 feet. So that's another possible scale that you could use. Just remember, think of it as a fraction, right? So if you think of it as a fraction, whatever you do to the one side, you do to the other. Whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. Number 9, a scale drawing for a scale for a scale drawing is 10 centimeters to 1 millimeter. Which is larger, the actual object or the scale drawing? So a scale for the scale drawing, so what that means is, let's say, so scale, all right, so that's the first thing, right? So a scale for a scale drawing. So scale is typically something smaller than a drawing, right? The question is 10 centimeters smaller than 1 millimeter? Because remember, this is what it's referring to. This is what this is referring to. So is 10 centimeters smaller than 1 millimeter? No. So what's actually bigger? The scale or the scale drawing? Now this one's a little confusing because it says which is larger, the actual object, where there's no reference for the actual object. We don't really know how big the actual object is. So this is kind of a misleading question. The book, let's see what the book says. The book does say, let's see. It says because the scale is 10 centimeters to 1 millimeter, and because 10 centimeters is longer than 1 millimeter, the drawing will be larger. Well, that's true. The drawing would be larger because 1 millimeter of the drawing represents 10 centimeters, right? I assume. But the question's off because it says which is larger, the actual object or the scale. So again, we don't know. We don't know. So this is a bad question. So I'm just going to put a question mark. No dimensions of actual object are given. So that one's kind of a misleading question. It's just not a good question altogether. So we're going to skip that. Okay, so hopefully those are three good examples of what to expect in the lesson of using scale drawings, and converting from one to the next. Godspeed.